and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 386, and today's date is June 9th, 2014, and the title of this episode is, As the Dollar Collapses, Bankers Are Taking Measures to Protect Themselves. And if we look around the world, we look at the European nations, we look at the United States, we look at these central bankers, what do we see? Well, we see a huge amount of debt in every single country. We see balance sheets of the Fed topping $4 trillion. We see the ECB right now going to negative interest rates, and we definitely can see capital controls on their way in the European nations to make sure that those individuals do not take out their cash from the banks. Because why would you keep your money in the bank if you are getting negative interest? It makes no sense whatsoever at this time, and we can see people are starting to scratch their head and say, what is going on here? And if we really look at this, we see that other banks are taking measures. We know that Bank of America, Chase, Wells Fargo, they're putting limits on how much money you can transfer outside of the country. They want to keep the money inside the United States. We're also seeing that Chase is going to charge customers a fee for depositing cash into the bank. Beginning August 1st of this year, JP Morgan Chase will charge their customer for depositing cash into their accounts. According to an internal document sent to account holders, in less than a month from now, the fee for all types of cash deposits will be 25 cents per $100 deposited. The CDB fee will only apply after you exceed your account's cash deposit limit. Chase is charging customers for every $100 in cash deposited. Other banks are charging on every cash deposit of $10,000 or 20 cents on every 100 deposited. So we can see that these banks, they are sitting here, they are getting worried, they realize the interest rates are completely zero, and we can see right now they are taking measures to protect themselves. And why else are they protecting themselves? Well, because they realize the dollar is dying. It is not doing well around the world. Many nations are starting to remove it from their reserves, and they're ramping up on different currencies, or they're just completely not trading in the dollar whatsoever. And of course, Russia, China are definitely pushing this. They are pushing nations by making deals with them to completely bypass the dollar. As we know, Russia right now and Gazprom, they are completely de-dollarizing themselves from the West. They don't want to have anything to do with the dollar. They are taking precautions just in case there are more sanctions on their way, and they're looking for China to really ramp up doing dealings with them, not using the dollar whatsoever. China has been making deals all around the world with bilateral trade agreements with Australia, New Zealand, UK, setting up clearinghouses, and we can see this is continually spreading all across the world. Now, we also see that China and Japan right now, from June 1st, 2014, from now on, all transactions will be carried out between the two countries without converting national currencies into dollars. The Japanese yen and the Chinese yuan will be exchanged on currency markets of Tokyo and Shanghai. The worldwide dominance of the American greenback is slowly becoming history at this time. So what are we seeing? We are seeing many, many nations protecting themselves by trading with other currencies. And as they reduced their reserves, these dollars are going to flow back to the United States. And as these dollars flow back to the United States, what happens? The value of the dollar completely devalued over time, and then we see the rise of prices on products. And we're seeing this already. We're seeing food increasing. We're seeing other products, their prices going up, and this is not going to stop. And what's absolutely ridiculous is that salaries are actually going down. So as prices of food and other products are going up, we see salaries are going down and not keeping pace with inflation. And especially those people who are unemployed or underemployed, they pretty much have no salary or they're stagnant at this time, and it's getting harder and harder for them to make ends meet. The older generation who are retired, who are receiving their fixed income, they are seeing that this is becoming more and more difficult for them to make ends meet. This is why they're getting part-time jobs, and they're seeing that this is not even keeping up with inflation. So some of these people are getting more than one job to keep up with what is going on. Now we realize that the central bankers, they need to keep this debt system going. This is why they're continually pushing the debt all across the world. They need more people to take on the dollar to continually prop it up. They need more people in the United States to take on more and more debt, and this is why they've lowered the standards for student loans. If you are having problems with getting credit, it doesn't matter. You can still get a student loan now. They're doing this in the car industry. They're also doing it in the housing market. They're trying to get as many people into debt as they possibly can. This is how the system survives. And what's very interesting right now is that more and more people are taking on student loan debts to go back to school, to get an education, because they're promised after they're finished with college, they're going to get this great, fantastic job. And what normally happens now in this market? They can't find that work. What happens now is they graduate college, they continually search for these jobs, and guess what? There are really none out there. Now, I'm not saying that everyone doesn't get a job, but 80% are having a problem, and they're living with their parents, and they're not getting these full-time, good-paying jobs. And this is going to be a very big problem going forward, because the youth of America is the foundation for the next generation. This foundation, this youth, this segment of the market is in big, big trouble, because they're not getting the jobs, they're not saving the money, they're not buying new cars to get to their jobs, they're not going out and spending money in retail, they're not saving the money, they're not purchasing the homes. And you can see this is going to have an horrific effect going down the line. But don't worry, Obama was out there, and he's going to make it better for everybody. He's making it easier by allowing people to defer payments, to make it easier, because they realize nobody has a job and they can't find work. So what do they have to do? They have to make it easier for people to pay back their student loans. And you have to start scratching your head going, why are so many people having problems paying back their student loans? Why are they in so much debt? Well, the answer is because they can't find good paying jobs. I mean, we see these job numbers come out, and most of them are temporary, hospitality. I mean, my wife's cousin graduated Binghamton, looking around for jobs, sending resumes out all over the place, finally gets a ping back on his resume, goes in for an interview, and what is it? It's $14 an hour for 20 hours. This is the job he can get. It's not even a full-time job, so he has to live with his parents. He has a lot of student loans. He's going to have to pay them back, and he'll live with his parents at this time. And this is what's happening to many, many kids who are graduating college. It's getting more and more difficult for them to make it in today's world. And of course, Obama, he's giving a live speech today, and he went on to say that the president will sign an order directing the Secretary of Education to ensure that more students who borrowed federal direct loans will be allowed to cap their loan payments at 10% of their monthly incomes. Many students who borrow, who take out loans, are working and trying responsibly to make their monthly payments, but are nonetheless struggling with burdensome debt. And the question again is, where is all this debt? Why do they have all this debt? Why don't they have the income to pay back their student loans? And the question is because most of America is underemployed, unemployed, and those college graduates are having a very difficult time finding that high-paying job in their major, and they're forced to take part-time work just to make ends meet, or they can't even get the part-time job because most of them say, you're too qualified, you're going to leave, we don't want to hire you, and this is what normally happens. Now, we understand there was another mass shooting in Las Vegas, and like I said, there is the gun bill, there is the UN Arms Treaty. They are pending in the Senate. They're waiting for a special event, and if you really look back, we have had mass shooting after mass shooting after mass shooting, and it seems like, and this is a very short period of time, and it seems like it always ends up in the same way, where the shooter takes his own life. They always end up dead, and right now, you can see this story starting to form. They're trying to connect this Las Vegas shooter to people who are anti-government, who had to deal with or were involved with the Bundy militia, with the standoff there, and they're trying to connect all of this because you have to remember the Department of Justice, Eric Holder, they're creating this task force to go after homegrown terrorists, domestic terrorists, homegrown extremists, and you can see they're starting to put all this together. So this is going to help them in many different ways with their agenda. First, you see the mass shooting. This is getting all the gun control people all up and, going around saying, yes, we need to pass these laws, we need to pass these laws. And this is what they've been trying to do. This is why these bills have been pending in the Senate. Now they're trying to link all of this together with the Clive and Bundy, with the militia. They're trying to link this person with white extremists or homegrown extremists, domestic terrorists, for the domestic terrorist forces that Eric Holden is going to use. And this is continually happening. And of course, there's a lot of information coming out about this shooting. And you have to remember, it happened in Walmart. Walmart has a lot of cameras. All down the drug aisles, you have those little scanners saying, we're filming you now. And of course, this is being used to catch those people who are trying to steal these type of different beauty or drug items. They have cameras all in the ceilings, monitoring everywhere. So we should see some footage coming out about what actually happens. And normally when there's cameras, we never see any footage. But what we're seeing right now is that the connection, they're trying to really push this now. They're showing video footage of this person, Gerard Miller. Yes, he was involved with the Clive and Bundy Ranch. Of course, this happened in Nevada. Coincidence? I think not. I don't believe in coincidences. And again, they have him filmed on the side of the road, talking to a reporter, and the people who were handling the militia said they wouldn't let him join in and be on the Bundy Ranch because he had an arrest record, so they kind of shunned him away. Now, of course, the news crew found him on the road and interviewed him and made it seem like he was part of the militia when he really wasn't. So we can see how they're trying to play this whole entire thing up at this time. And of course, it is kind of coincidental that it happened in Nevada, very close to the Bundy Ranch, and who's involved in this? Harry Reid. And you can see that it could be it looks like they're trying to revive this whole Bundy Ranch thing once again while trying to go after the guns at the same exact time. And again, if you look at the rant of Gerard Miller, he was on some type of medication. Of course, that's going to come out later. And he was, in the time when he did his Facebook rant about the government and anti-government, he was on house arrest for drugs or something like that. And again, they are trying to put a face on what a homegrown extremist looks like, what a domestic terrorist looks like. They're trying to put a face on those people who are anti-government. And this is their agenda at this time. They have actually two agendas running simultaneously during this mass shooting. Now, out in Indiana, we see that they're getting a new mine-resistant, ambush-protected armored vehicle, and of course we see this happening all across the United States. Many towns are getting uniforms, they're getting military assault rifles, they're getting these mine-resistant, ambush-protected type of tanks, they're getting electronic surveillance equipment, as long as they are in compliance with DHS. They want the local police force to be completely militarized. This is their agenda because they realize when this collapse comes and people start talking out against the government, who are rioting because they don't have food, because the dollar is collapsing, they need all of these police, local law enforcement, precincts in the towns and everywhere else to come into compliance and work with DHS to keep control of the people and to bring people to certain FEMA camps to make sure they confiscate weapons. And this is why all of this is happening. But what's very interesting, out in Indiana, they did get one of these tanks, and of course when the sheriff was questioned about it, he said that we need this because we are actually in a war zone. Really? I'm looking around the United States. I'm not seeing the war zone. And he's out there saying that the United States of America has become a war zone, he said. There's violence in the workplace, there's violence in schools, and there's violence in the streets. You are seeing police departments going to semi-military format because of the threats we have to counteract. If driving a military vehicle is going to protect officers, then that's what I'm going to do. So really, the police officers need a mine-resistant, ambush-protected tank in a town of 13,000. Does this make any sense whatsoever unless they are planning on something that's going to go really bad down the line? And this is exactly what's happening. Now, we understand that the United States passed the NDAA. The president, of course, signs it in the middle of the night at the end of the year. He does this every single time to pass it when there's no one around. And now there is a new NDAA. And you have to remember, this NDAA allows the president to say, yes, that person's a domestic terrorist, pick them up, throw them in jail without due process, and they can sit in that prison for 1 year. And there's a new NDAA which has been brought up by top senators, and of course they thought you wouldn't notice. They did this behind closed doors, and every time they're doing something that the public wouldn't agree with, they always do it behind closed doors. They wrote up a new indefinite detention. It's a Guantanamo provision in the annual defense policy bill, and then they waited about 11 days to quietly file the bill so no one really noticed what was going on. Now, the new bill says that detainees may be brought to the United States for detention pursuant to the authorization for use of military force, which means that the policy of indefinite detention by the military without charge or trial could be carried out here at home. And this goes on to say that it tries to strip the federal court of ability to decide challenges to harmful conditions. In a stunning provision, the Senate NDAA tries to strip federal courts of their ability to hear or consider any challenge related to harmful treatment or conditions by detainees brought to the United States. This provision tries to gut our system of checks and balances by cutting out the court systems completely. And of course, this is all being put into place, and we can see they put into place the Patriot Act, the NDAA. They're continually modifying the NDAA, where they also allowed the United States government is allowed to use propaganda on the people. That was in the latest NDAA, and they are continually doing this on and on and on. And the reason for this is because they realize they will need to maintain control of the people in the United States. They're going to be those people who do not agree with the government. They're going to rise up against the government. There's going to be protests. They want to push these people down. They want to round them up, take them and put them into prison and say they are homegrown extremists, they're domestic terrorists, and they want to take them and put them away. And of course, those people that are being placed on lists because of the NSA spying, the fusion centers, they're creating social profiles on every single person. They will use their lists to go after those people and round those people up. So all of this is being done for a specific purpose. And like I said, Eric Holder, the Department of Justice, they're resurrecting that program to go after domestic terrorists, to find those homegrown extremists. And this is what they're doing right now. And what they're saying is that they're looking for those people who have an anti-government or racially prejudiced type of view. And these are the people that they want to find. These are the people they want to get. These are the people that they want to put behind bars, because these people are going to be a problem to the system. And this goes on to say, from Eric Holder, we must also concern ourselves with continued danger we face from individuals within our own borders who may be motivated by a variety of other causes from anti-government or racial prejudice, Holder said. It appears there's an attempt to marginalize people who hold views that are sharply different from those of the administration and much of the establishment. So if you do not agree with the government, they have a problem with you. And of course, you can see that this is a huge, huge problem. I mean, of course, this looks like the SS coming out saying, here is the special task force. I'm waiting to see the uniforms with patches, and them in special garb to come and take you away, and myself included, because I definitely have a completely opposite view of the government. But again, this is why the Founding Fathers put all this into place. This is why they gave us freedom of speech, freedom of the press, to criticize and to question the government. And this is what we are actually doing. Listen, I don't want violence. I am a peaceful person, but I will protect my family if someone comes to me or tries to harm my family. I rather have everything done peacefully. I rather remove the government peacefully and have them step down, because they are no longer representing the people of the United States. And they are just looking, and of course we know how the government works. They only know one thing and one thing only. They only know how to use force against the people. Look at the example in Ukraine. United States central bankers, they're controlling the puppet regime there. We had the local police in Lugansk, Donetsk, and Kharkov giving the list of potential threats within their community. They handed it off to the anti-terrorism forces, and those anti-terrorism forces went after those people. And we can see everybody wants peace in Ukraine. Poroshenko's talking peace, Putin's talking peace, United States wants peace. But what do we see? We see the puppet regime and the United States government continually intensifying the anti-terrorism forces in Ukraine, because they want what they want and they don't care who they hurt. Look at the Middle East. Look at Africa. It's the same every single place, and they want to do the same thing here in the United States. Now, out in Bulgaria, what is happening there, the Bulgaria's prime minister has ordered a halt to work on Russia's South Stream pipeline on the recommendation of the EU. The decision was announced after talks with some U.S. senators. At this time, there is a request from the European Commission, after which we've suspended the current works. I ordered it. Further proceedings will be decided after additional consultation with Brussels. So all work with Russia has been stopped on this stream gas pipeline. McCain, commenting on the situation, said that Bulgaria should solve the South Stream problems in collaboration with European colleagues, adding that in the current situation they would want less Russian involvement in the project. Russia's energy minister said he had not yet received any official notification from Bulgaria on work on the project being suspended. And you can see United States central bankers, they're pushing their agenda forward. They're trying to remove themselves from any type of Russian activity. And of course, Russia is looking at this and saying, you know what, we're going to have nothing to do with the U.S. dollar or the Western central banks. This is why we're creating our own payment system. This is why we're making deals bypassing the dollar. And of course, once the main sanctions are placed on Russia, and I'm not talking about the individuals or the banking or certain companies, I'm talking about sectors or the entire country of Russia, you're going to see something big happen if they actually decide to do this, because we're going to see a boomerang effect, and it will hit Europe, it will hit the United States. And this is why Europe and the United States have been kind of not pushing that too hard at this time, because they realize they rather have an event started so they can blame it on another country. If they put these sanctions on Russia and it destroys the European economy, United States economy, the people will rise up and say, you place sanctions on Russia, but our economies are falling apart. We're coming after you. And they do not want this to happen, and this is why they've been maneuvering, strategically placing military assets, provoking these countries. They're provoking China, they're provoking Russia, and they're trying to get events started in the Middle East at this time. Now, Russia expects to receive advance payment for gas from Ukraine on June 10th. We are going to have to see how that plays out. We are one day away from that, and let's see if Ukraine coughs up the money to receive their gas. Now, the commander of the East Ukraine insurgency is now speaking out. He pretty much is in the background, and what he is saying is that he believes that the situation will change for the worse because now this so-called legitimate presidency immediately will turn to NATO countries, to Western countries, and he will ask for help, which Poroshenko has already done. He's already done. Of course, he's talking about peace, but in the other breath, he's talking about taking back Crimea, not dealing with the insurgents or the people of Donetsk, Kharkov, and Slavansk. He wants them to just lay down their arms so they can come in and take over those regions. And of course, the people are not going to do this. And the leader of the people of Donetsk said, "We can expect to be confronted with new NATO tanks, helicopters, aircraft, advisor instructors, mercenaries. There will be greater number of shells, troops, and victims moving forward." And we already see this. They're making a referendum, Ukraine, to join NATO at this time. We have American advisors coming into Ukraine to help create their security forces and help with the troops. And again, we can see how this is going to play out. They're going to continually provoke until they get a response from Russia. This is their end game here. They want Russia to do something. Now, what we're seeing is we're seeing that they're paid mercenaries, Ukrainian extremists. They're trying to sneak into Crimea because, of course, they want to try to start something in Crimea at this time, and extremists and regular tourists are coming to Crimea today pretending to be refugees. 5 cases have been registered. People are coming from vacation, coming through Ukraine into Crimea, and all of a sudden they're seeing that there are some extremists trying to slip in and trying to start something inside Crimea. Now, in Ukraine, what we're seeing right now is that Ukraine's acting Interior Minister Arsen Avakov has announced plans to deploy all the department forces in combat and patrol units to eastern Ukraine for participation in the ongoing military operations against the protesters or the people of Donetsk, Kharkov, and Slavansk. And of course, this is everybody. He said he's made the decision. All fighting and patrol divisions of the Ministry of Internal Affairs will take part in this anti-terrorism operation. He warned that any member of the ministry who refuses to join the Ukrainian army will be fired. So they are bringing everything into this region at this time. They're going to use bombs, missiles, guns, kill anyone they want. It doesn't matter because the bankers and the United States are pushing the puppet regime agenda. They said, get control of Ukraine any way you possibly can. We don't care who you kill or hurt. Get control of that region or you lose your money. Now we can see that the United States, the European nations, the UK, they are moving military assets all around Eastern Europe, building the military assets up, encircling Russia. And the Royal Navy frigate HMS Montrose has been deployed to the Baltic Sea to take part in the annual joint military exercise. Britain's armed forces are to participate in 3 operations in the Baltic region to provide reassurance to allies in Eastern Europe. Of course, this is all because of the Russian and Ukraine crisis that's going on at this time. Now, we can see that 10 NATO countries are going to start war games in Latvia. A major military exercise kicked off in Latvia with 10 NATO member countries participating. The war games involve 4,700 troops and 800 military vehicles. Russia sees NATO's military buildup as a sign of aggression towards Russia. And this is the Sabre Strike Ground Force exercise. This is being conducted for the 4th time this year already. Seems a little extreme, doesn't it? But they're trying to provoke. They're trying to get ready for what they're going to cause, and that is war. Troops from the U.S., Canada, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Norway, and the UK are taking part in these exercises. Now, the U.S. is now bringing over the B-2 stealth bomber, and it is flying it into Europe. The U.S. Air Force has sent more of its bombers to Europe. deploying 2 B-2 stealth aircraft as part of the military exercise. And of course, every time they talk about exercise, bringing over military assets, they always seem to end up staying in these areas. We saw it happen during August of 2013 with Syria when they had an exercise in Jordan, and all the military assets just happened to stay there, and we're seeing the same thing happen in Eastern Europe at this time. The U.S. has been sending additional troops to Europe lately in a gesture meant to reassure its NATO partners, and they are continually building up their forces in this area. Okay, now in Syria, we can see that the exercises are still going on in Jordan. There's thousands upon thousands of troops there. We understand that more sophisticated weapons are being moved into that region to train these paid mercenaries. And we're also seeing that the president of Syria, President Assad, has announced general amnesty. The presidential order concerns crimes committed before June 9, 2014. The presidential order on amnesty has been signed within the context of national reconciliation and unification after victories of the Syrian army. So he's pretty much saying everyone is off the hook, come back home, let's stop all of this. And we have to remember those chemical weapons, the 7 to 8%, are still in Syria. The United States central bankers, along with the Arab nations, Israel, are trying to, and France and the rest of the private Western central bank countries, are trying to make a case and trying to create this illusion that Assad violated the treaty, this chemical weapon treaty, and they're trying to void it completely. And this is why they're keeping the 7 to 8% of these chemical weapons inside the country, because if they can prove that he used chlorine weapons on his own people and on the paid mercenaries, then they have proof. This voids the contract. The United States and the rest of the countries can now invade Syria. And of course, this is not going to happen because Assad has not used it. France said already they're having troubles proving this. And again, this is going to be a big problem because now Assad is really making more moves in saying that he'll forgive these people and just let's all come back and just live our lives. And of course, the United States central bankers definitely do not want this whatsoever. Now, what's very interesting is that the Western-backed Syrian rebels are having quiet meetings with Israel, basically secret meetings with Israel. Syrian opposition members were conducting a dialogue with Israeli government on the revolt that they're having right now. What these talks are about, don't really know, but we can kind of figure out what is going on here. Something is being planned because, again, you do not move these military assets into position. You don't have these exercises with troops now running to June 10th, by the way, which is tomorrow. And who knows if this will go on a little bit longer, but it doesn't really matter because they leave the military assets in place and they're continually training. They have more aid coming down to the paid mercenaries, and we understand the United States has already kicked out the Syrian government from all the embassies, sent them all home, and said that the opposition now is the acting government of Syria. And of course, the president, we can't forget, he said that Assad has absolutely no future whatsoever in his own country. And we can see that something is going on. It's way too quiet at this point, and we are definitely going to see some type of an event occur. And we have to remember what's coming up here. There was an ad in Craigslist about getting crisis actors for Atlanta. This is coming up in the end of June time frame. We can see the dry runs on the power grid. There was a cyber attack dry run on a power grid that I didn't report before. We can see that there were explosives from the Department of Justice that were sent across the world to many embassies and to other locations that were not revealed. Of course, they didn't have to be scanned. They bypassed. They were exempt from that, so they were sent off. And we can see that something is definitely in the works. It is way too quiet. They've been building up the propaganda about Americans coming home to the United States, and they're radicalized. The UK, the European Union, also saying the same exact thing, that people are flooding back they're radicalized because Syria is the launching pad of terrorists. We also understand the UK put out a warning about some type of cyber attacks on the banking system within the next 2 weeks. We understand the stock exchange, the NASDAQ, and the BAT system all have kill switches. And we understand that Iran and the United States and Russia are in secret talks right now. Iran has met with the United States about this P5+1 deal, about their nuclear program, which is a complete illusion. It's really about their banking system, how they can infiltrate it, how they can get in there, how they can place their reserves on the US dollar. And if they can't get this moving forward, the July 20th date is going to hit. Iran is already saying that they're going to need an extension. The White House says they have no plans for an extension at this time. We're going to have to see how this plays out going forward. Now, Japan did not inform the UN regulators for 2 years of a reactor fuel supply containing enough plutonium for 80 nuclear bombs. And we have to remember, Japan is trying to change their constitution, Article 9. They don't want to be a passive nation anymore. They want to protect themselves. They created their first warship since World War II. They're setting up many different missile launch pads. They're having the United States move the base to a different location for more sophisticated weapons, and they actually wanted to build a nuclear bomb. And we can see they didn't inform the UN regulators. Now, just think of this. They didn't do this, but what happens if Iran did this and they said, oh yes, we forgot to inform the UN regulators that we have enough plutonium to make 80 nuclear bombs. But no one is coming down on Japan. They're just saying, oh, we just forgot. And of course, China is out there and they're saying, we need an answer of why this happened. You completely forgot about this, the quantity of this amount of plutonium to make 80 nuclear bombs? Please, this is absolutely ridiculous that you just so happen to forget. Because if this happened in Iran, they'd be all over them. But no one is all over Japan. It makes no sense at this time. Something is in the works. Something is being planned, and we will see this very, very soon. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.